Hello, this is Marc Sabatella, the Director of Education for MuseScore, and I am here with another MuseScore Café, which is just some informal talk sessions where I can just demonstrate some things. If you've got questions, I'm happy to answer questions as we go. This is interactive while it's live, and then it's archived. And the topic that I picked to talk about today is creating educational materials, or really anything that involves combining text and notation. So there's a couple different ways of doing this, and I figure I'd just show you some of what's possible, and then if you've got your own projects, maybe you can figure out which one works best for you. So the first thing that I want to show is just how to incorporate a short example like the one you're looking at here on screen into a text document. So the way that this is done, there's a couple different ways of doing even that. And the easiest, if you just have a few examples to do, is to use the image capture tool here. And it's the camera icon here. And when you click that, you get a box that you can then size and position however you want to select which part of the score you're interested in. If I'm only interested in the first measure, say, I can just resize this to just incorporate the first measure. And then once you've done that, you can, if you right-click this, you'll see a menu that comes up with various options for what you want the resolution to be and so forth, whether you want a transparent background or not. The transparent background is currently not working well on Windows, so I would turn that option off. At least it is for copy and paste. It works okay when you're saving. So you can save this to a file, or you could, as I said, just copy. So I'm going to just do that, Control-C. So if I go Control-C, it has now taken a snapshot of this, and now I can go into a text editor. Oops, this example I had already placed there. You can ignore that for a second. Let me get rid of that one. All I have to do is Control-V, and that example is now pasted in there. So that's a very simple way to just incorporate short musical examples into a text document. Then you can have all your text, and just nonsense text, but then have another example. I just use the same one again. So that's a way of incorporating short examples. There's another way if you're using LibreOffice, which is what I'm using. So that's actually what I want to show here. Is in LibreOffice, there is a extension that you can install, and the extension, that would go away. Okay, to install extensions, you go in the Tools Extension Manager, and if you go under Get More Extensions Online and search for MuseScore, you'll find the MuseScore Example Manager. And once that is installed, you'll have a new button on your toolbar to insert a MuseScore example. And let me show you how that works. This works by actually, I've saved this scale to a file just called scale. If I go to my document now and press the MuseScore button in LibreOffice, it'll pop up a dialog and ask you which score you want to insert. And I'll pick scale as my example. And as you see, it inserts the example right there. So if you've already created your examples, and again, meaningless text, just so you can see that that's how you would combine them. If you've already created your examples as separate files, this is a way to insert them. And the nice thing about this is, what if I decide, instead of D major, I think I'd rather have an E flat major scale there. Well, what you can do is, when I hover over this, for some reason the hovers are slow, control-clicking on this will load that file into MuseScore. So right now it's not very impressive because it's already loaded. Well, let me close it so it's not there in MuseScore, and then watch what happens when I control-click this. When I control-click this, it is now informing me that it is loaded into MuseScore. or is in the process of loading it. So my computer is being slow right now, I think because I'm running the video and I didn't reboot right before this, which I should have done. So while it loads, wow, sorry about that. There we go, and there's the scale. So if I now want to transpose this thing, I can say Notes, Transpose, and go to the key of E flat. And now it's an E flat scale. Let me save this. All right, so now that I've saved it as an E flat scale, I go back to my document, and all I have to do is click the example and then click the button again, and it's going to automatically update it. It will read in the updated file and reinsert it in the same position, assuming that it actually decides to work and not just hang my computer. There we go. And so now we've got the E-flat scale. So if you've got a lot of examples, if you're really producing a large document and you've inserted these examples and you think you might be needing to edit them later or work with them in some other way like that, or you want to create an interactive document so that when someone clicks on the example, it loads it into MuseScore and then they can play it back. There's all sorts of things like that you can do. The other thing, so that's a couple different ways of incorporating examples into a text document. The image capture would work with any word processor, any text editing tool you like. That extension manager is specific to LibreOffice. I assume it works with OpenOffice as well. LibreOffice and OpenOffice are two very similar open source word processors that kind of grew from a common ancestor, and they had a difference of opinion at some point, and LibreOffice is I think the version that more people are using now. But I think the extension manager should probably work with OpenOffice as well. So that's a way, again, two ways of incorporating examples into the into a text document. But it's also possible to incorporate text into the into MuseScore directly. And before I do that, I'm just going to take a quick look over at the chat, because I said I would be available to answer questions and so forth, but I haven't actually looked. So let me do that for a second and just see if I have anyone trying to ask me questions here. So when I'm creating documents that are mostly music and just a little bit of text, well then I don't tend to use this particular method. Instead, let me switch windows over here, since this is how I should probably be doing this. If I go here, okay, good. Lovely. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and demonstrate. If the document is mostly text with a little bit of examples, I use those previous techniques. However, if I want something that's mostly music with a little bit of text, then it's mostly text frames that I'm going to use. So I'm going to create a new document here, and I'm just going to use the treble clef template, just because it's nice and simple. And a common thing I might want to do is well, first, I should have entered a title and all, but it's not too late, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to add a title. I right-clicked. Okay, so the title of this might be, I don't know, Scale Handout. And then say I want to have a series of 4-bar examples here. I might insert some line breaks, or I could actually just go to Edit, Tools, Add, Remove System Breaks to add them every 4 bars. Oh, the dialog showed up off screen, as it sometimes does on my computer. And now there are breaks every 4 bars. And what I can do is I can insert text frames here. So I select this measure, frames and measures, and I'm going to double click the text frame button here. And now I can enter text. I'll double click in here and I can say 1. If this is a handout, well, whatever you want to do. Here is a D major scale. And then I can enter my notes. And so forth. And then if I want more text over here, I can double click and enter myself another frame and do whatever you want. And so I've used this in my classes, in my music classes that I've taught, to create handouts for students to study, homework assignments, tests, pretty much all the educational materials that I create other than actual textbooks. When I've written textbooks, I use the other technique that I showed you. But when I'm creating these shorter handouts, I do it this way, using text frames. Also, you should know that horizontal frames can be very useful here to kind of break up. Like if I want to put two scales on the same line, by adding a horizontal frame in the middle of the line, I now have space where I can do that. So anyhow, these are some things that you can be doing, adding text to your documents or incorporating your music into text documents to create educational materials. So I hope this has been helpful to some of you. And again, if you have any other ideas for topics you'd like to see me discuss, I'm more than happy to talk about them. I plan to just do these cafes on a weekly basis. And also let me know if what time, if you're interested in ever participating live where you can actually ask questions, but the time that I choose isn't working. I've been doing them at 12 Eastern time, which happens to be a time that kind of is most people in the English-speaking world are awake, but if that time isn't convenient because people are working and people would rather see them in the evening, and it's mostly in the United States or whatever, I want to get an idea of what time is good. So if you see a survey come up, or you could just add a comment to this and let me know what time works if you would like to participate live. But of course, they're always archived and you can watch them at your leisure. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the MuseScore Cafe, and signing off, this has been Marc Sabatella. Thank you.